Welcome to the Local 586 Retirees Minute, where we sit down with the brothers and sisters who made our local what it is today. Today I'm speaking with brother Albert Dumas. How are you today, Albert?
Yeah, pretty good.
Do you remember how and when did you start in the electrical trade?
Oh, that's a long story. I got out of high school, and I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. So I joined the armed forces. I got into the armed forces, and I don't know how many times I was up in front of the base commander for stupid little things, you know? And then, and another thing, when you see the base commander, you knock on the door, you stand at attention, and you salute when he tells you to come in, okay? I've seen him 5 times, and I always forgot that. And the last time I went in front of him, I forgot, and I went, oops, and then I saluted him. He goes, Albert, just forget it. Put your hand down. He says, sit down. He goes, you don't have the attitude to be a serviceman. He said, maybe you should take a year off and think about what you want to do, and then sign up again. He said, because right now you don't have the attitude. So what I did was I got a girlfriend when I got out, and we hitchhiked out to Alberta from Montreal. I lived in Montreal then. And I thought I was going to get some work out there in something. I didn't know what. A logging camp. I don't care what it was. You know? Mm-hmm. I went out there and wound up. Some guy stopped in a van in front of a mall, Kingsway Garden Mall it was called. And he said, hey, you guys looking for a job? I said, yeah, sure. Give us a job on a carnival.
Right on.
That lasted a few weeks. Got canned from there for firing my rifle. I was hitchhiking with my 2 rifles, Mm-hmm. And I saw this kind of gopher I'd never seen before. So I took a shot at it. He gives me shit. He says, you know how much I have to pay to rent this area? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we moved, packed up, and went to another place. I seen the same gopher. I took a shot at it. Bang. Some guy showed up with pay. Back home. I went back home. But when I was going home, this time we didn't hitchhike. We took a bus. Okay?
Okay.
I'm at the bus stop in Edmonton, and I see a local paper from Montreal. And I was looking at it. I thought, what's this doing way the hell out in Edmonton? And it said, there was an article in it, become a tradesman, become a plumber, an electrician at this school called Aviron. And this was in Montreal. So I said, hey, that's what I'm going to be, an electrician. So I took I went to school night.
Okay.
And I worked during the day to pay for it. And then when I was done, that was a 2-year course, night. And I couldn't get a job in Montreal. I'm not bilingual or nothing. Mm-hmm. So I headed out to Alberta. And I headed out to Edmonton, and a woman that worked with my father, the company he worked for, she was a secretary. She was married then, and he said she'll put you up in Edmonton until you get to work. So I went to Edmonton, and I went right to the local 424. They weren't taking me on. Mm-hmm. I hadn't worked. I couldn't bring in a shop or nothing, so they wouldn't take me on anyway. There was a man that I met with the apprenticeship board, and he told me about custom motor rewind. He said, if they're looking for a guy, they might hire you. They repaired 3-phase motors for the tar sands, all the oil companies. That's what they did. It was a rewind shop.
Okay.
And they repaired all kinds of 3-phase and DC and even some single-phase motors. Mm-hmm. So I worked there for 1.5 years as a mechanic. I wasn't a rewind guy. And I asked for a raise, and I wanted a $1 raise. And Herb owns a company. They said, okay, Albert, come and see me at New Year's. I'll tell you at New Year's. So I went. He gave me a 25 or a 50-cent raise. I said, I need $1. I just got a new car, mm-hmm. and I need $1. And he goes, Albert, I can't. I said, bing. I went to the union hall again. Anyway, I wound up. They said if there's a contractor looking for an apprentice, and if he doesn't have one in 2 weeks, we'll send you. And in 2 weeks, they didn't have one, and then bingo, I joined the local 424.
And do you remember what your first job was when you started at 424?
Yeah, I worked on the university for a little while. University in Edmonton, I forget what it was called, University Alberta or something.
Do you remember who your first journey person was on that job?
Yeah, his name was Dave. I can't really remember. The first one I worked for was a brute. This guy was a big guy, and he was almost 65. He was ready to retire, eh? And he was bending 1.25 inch pipe, and he was teaching me how to bend pipe. And this guy, he'd bend the pipe, and he'd just throw that 1.25 inch bender. When he was done bending it, he'd drop it or throw it out of his way. And you know what? That's what I did all through the trade. When I was bending 1.25 inch, that's a monster. That's the biggest hand bender we get, eh?
Oh, yeah.
I just threw that out of my way, and I'm just like him. I've had, Albert, you'll break it. You can't, fuck, you'll break it. Like, fuck, you'll break it. Fuck. Anyway, but I thought when I got into the trade, I didn't know it was like that in construction. I had no idea. I thought I'd be setting timers, doing relays, or hooking up transformers and disconnects. And I didn't know I'd be doing this. I thought, what the hell is this? And it took me, I'd say it took me about close to 10 years, 10 years or whatever. One day I said, you know what? This is what I'm going to be doing the rest of my life as a career. I said, I got to learn to like it and learn how to do everything I do well. And that's what I did.
And what part of the trade did you end up liking the most? Do you like a pipe guy or fire alarm or distribution?
I'm good at bending pipe, doing tray, bending tray, cutting tray. But I can't really say what I like the most because I've done a lot. I remember one of the first jobs you were asking what it was, and then that contractor in Edmonton sent us out, me and just the guy I was working with, out to Fort Saskatchewan. And this was in the winter. We went in November, December, January, February. And that was the coldest winter ever. It was 65 below. Oh, Fort Saskatchewan. They were getting ready to do two huge refineries. Petro-Canada, I think, was one of them. And the other one was, I forget. But there was nothing there. We had a trailer, and you had to keep your car running all day. If you shut it off, you wouldn't get it going. Eh? It was that cold. Right, yeah, and then, but it took a long time to really get into the trade where I really liked it. Okay, it took a while anyway. But at first, like I said, it was a shock to me. I had no idea this is what we do.
Is there a memorable job that sticks out?
Well, different guys I've worked with, you know, the last time I was in Fort McMurray was in 2015. And I went to UE1 Syncrude, and that sticks out because I remember I was pulling tech cable, or we were pulling. We were on a tray. We're on a night shift. It's pitch black, freezing, and anyway, my partner Chris Miston, he got a call. Temporary power needed a hand. Okay, and we just climbed up over 400, close to 500 feet to get to where we're going. But he said, temp power needs a hand. he's down on the ground level some area on the site, and he needs some help. And Chris goes, Albert, I'm 55 years old. He says, I'm not going all the way back down there and come out. He says, you go. So I did. I went. And I talked to the foreman, and he said, you're going to be working with this guy. His name was Stoyagen. And he was, he wasn't Russian. They lived right beside Russia. Russia tried to take his country, too, when he was a kid. But I thought he's an immigrant, and the government in Canada is giving our jobs away to everybody on the planet. I didn't like him right away. And then I learned that Stoyagen was working at Suncor in the 60s before they even built the place practically.
Oh, wow.
He'd been around a long time. That guy, what a ride that was working with that guy, man. He got me in so much trouble, but not even knowing I remember it was a second, like we were stuck needing a ladder. So out there then in 2015, if there was a ladder that you used that had a red flag on it, you got written up, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd already been written up a couple of times for something like that, and I'm in the office trailer with a bunch of engineers and general foremen or whatever, and they're saying, Albert, if you ever use a busted ladder again, he said, that's it, you're out of here, you're gone. So anyway, me and Stoyagen needed a ladder. And Stoyagen goes, Albert, I know where there's a ladder. He said, I need a 12-foot ladder we need. It's right there, laying on the stand someplace. So I went and got it, threw it in the truck, set it up. I'm working on it. And anyway, the safety guy, which carried a lot of power, and I had got shit by him so many times. He drives by with his truck. He stops. He gets out. He looks at me, shakes his head, gets back in his truck, and he takes off. I go, what's his problem? And then I'm looking at the ladder. It's got a red flag on it. For fuck's sake. Fucking Stoyagen, you fuck. He's the one who said, hey, there's a ladder. I know where to leave. Anyways, that's one time. That was and you know what? When I left that job, it was at night, and I was leaving the site. I had got my tools, and I was going to get a cab into in the morning. I was allowed to leave early because I was leaving the next morning. Anyway, it was pitch black, and I'm leaving with my toolbox. I didn't have a chance to say bye to Stoyagen. And I could hear him yelling from the steel. I couldn't see him because it's all catwalk and it's pipe. You can't see him, eh? Mm-hmm. He goes, Albert, he says, you're my greatest partner. He goes, I'll never see you again. And I'm trying to see him. And it reminded me of a scene from a movie, Dances of Fools, that I saw once. But anyway, that was I remember when I was in McMurray in the early 80s, I told an iron worker, I said, his name was Wolf. Yeah, the iron worker. That was in the early 80s. I said, I'm never coming back here again. And he said, Albert, don't ever say never. And yeah, he was right. 2005. Sorry.
That's all right, man.
I'm eating raisins and they dry my throat. But anyway, I said, yeah, he was right. 2015, back I went.
Back at her. Back to find the gopher.
Yeah.
What lessons have you learned from being in Local 586?
What lessons?
Yeah, like what have you learned about being like a unionized electrician versus anything else you've done?
Well, I've got somewhere to go. If there's something wrong, I've learned that. If I'm having a problem with the contractor or I've got somewhere to go. It's not like if you're non-union, you only got the contract.
That's it.
Yeah. And I've never really had any trouble going to my local for any issues that I've had. And I've had a few. I kind of try to remember, but not very many. I don't complain. And if I do, it's safety issues I bring up, and I noticed it gets done. We had an issue, like there's been a lot of issues where a guy is going to get killed if they don't do something. One was 2000 and something, the early 2000s, before 2010. I was doing a job, and there was that Iogen, and they were the hoist that lifts up tanks for welding machines. People aren't supposed to go in it. It's a cage, but the chain built up on the top. This is just one issue. Anyway, there was a stairwell right beside it, going the next level, right beside this lift. The chain would build up on the top of that cage, and it would fall off. And this time it fell off and whipped, like, a cattail. You roll with a towel, you wet it, smack. Okay, well, that's what it did, and just missed the back of Lyle's head. It would have blown his head off like a tomato. Now, if I knew I was with non-union guys or a contractor, they would have done nothing. But I brought it up that day, and that day they got the contract carpenters to build two sheets of 1-inch plywood right along the stairwell. So if that thing came off, it ain't going to hit. No, I thought, wow, what a job. Right on. Like things like that. They'll get done. Yeah.
What would you like to say to like a new apprentice starting out in the trade?
Yeah, well, for what I've seen, new guys getting in the trade, not all of them, but pretty much most of them, it's like it was for me. It's like a shock, like, whoa, this is what we do?
Yeah.
I'd say learn how to do it well and learn to love it, because you're going to be doing it for a long time. You're going to be doing it in the cold. You're going to be doing it in the heat. You won't be doing it in the rain, though. You're inside. But that's what I tell them. Learn how to do what you're doing well. And there's good ways, there's right ways, and there's shitty ways of doing something that you can tell has just been thrown up there. No, make it look good. Learn how to bend your pipe, how to pull your cable, bend your tray, how to. There's so many things. Like almost every day you're in the trade, you can do something you've never done before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've told that to a lot of guys, and they tell me, the older guys too, yeah, you're right. You can just about always do something that you've never done before. Learn how to do it.
I'd like to thank Albert Dumas for speaking with us today. If you or someone you know is a retired member and would like to share their experiences here in Retirees Minute, please contact the office. We'd love to share your story. Thanks for listening.